Welcome to the Greater Irvine Chamber Business Insights podcast series, where we address challenges and ideas for early stage and entrepreneurial business leaders. Your host today is Dave Coffaro, Interim President and CEO of the Greater Irvine Chamber.
Hello, folks. Welcome to the Greater Irvine Chamber Business Insights podcast series. I'm Dave Coffaro and glad to be with you today. And, I was thinking about a friend of mine who was a successful attorney in Newport Beach. He was with a small firm. He started out as an associate, and after a few years with the firm, instead of taking the partner track, he decided that he wanted to go out on his own. So he did all the things that you need to do to start a business. He got his license, he set up his LLC, got an office, arranged to share a legal assistant with another solo practitioner. So he thought he was all set to go. And then reality set in. He realized he didn't have any clients. And the firm that he had left, which was serving kind of middle market clients, he thought clients would just follow him, and they didn't. So here he was, ready to do business, but he had no one with whom to do business. So he made us an assumption that a lot of us make, which is the build it and they will come assumption. Open up a law firm, the accounting practice, the plumbing business, the boba shop, whatever it is, and automatically customers come to you. If you kind of carry that forward into the digital world, the assumption could be build the website or the LinkedIn page and the customers will come to me. There's a reality. And in reality, no matter how brilliant we are, no matter what an amazing attorney, accountant, or plumber we might be, or what an incredible social media presence we might have, it's about building and managing a network that leads to our business growth. And yeah, there can be exceptions, but they're just that, exceptions. So with that in mind, our podcast today is about networking essentials. What are the fundamentals necessary to be an exemplar at networking? And for this conversation, my guest is Dr. Bob Adamik. Bob is a human resource consultant, certified ABA personality analyst, and an adjunct professor at USC. Dr. Bob is founder of the Ethos Networking Group and a subject matter expert on the topic of professional networking, and just an all-around really interesting person. So Bob, thanks so much for being with us today.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
So let's get right into the questions. To start out, tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience with professional networking.
Okay, great. After getting out of the Navy, I was in the Navy for 6 years, Vietnam veteran. I joined a Fortune 500 company, started working my way up the corporate ladder, and spent 30 years in the top financial company and became top HR. And so as I built my career over time, networking was really an internal experience. Everybody was networking internally in corporations and not externally. But something had changed. Something had happened that changed that in the year 2008. Many of us remember the financial crisis that we went through. And there's just literally hundreds of thousands of executives and employees out of work, many of them in Orange County in Southern California. And so what I found during that time was that the people were just scrambling around, picking up cards, collecting cards, of business associates and all that, and not really networking. They really didn't know what it was to network because they didn't need to. They had 20, 30-year careers prior to that. And for many of them, it was their first experience. So what I found after the crisis started, I started going around to different groups and I started doing a SWOT analysis on those groups and what was really needed to be a professional networking environment. And so I started Ethos Networking Group. Now we started small with about 50 people a month coming out every single month. We served breakfast. We had networked for 30 or 40 minutes. We had a speaker. I was one of the only networking groups at the time that were paying the speakers $100 to come out and speak, but it was on motivational topics. It was not going to be on sales and selling us products and services. It was going to be on motivating us and keeping us on target with that theme. So we built Ethos on that grounds. It lasted for 13 years, 50 people a month for 13 years. We've served over 5,000 people in Southern California, helping them with their careers and their business goals all those years. And we closed it up last year for the first year for a new direction and a new set of things that we want to accomplish. But that's how we got started. And we'll talk a little bit more about it as we go on the podcast.
That's amazing, Bob. I mean, 5,000 people that you were able to impact through that, so something that's so essential to business. So let's define what is professional networking and how would you define professional networking in today's business environment?
Right. Well, all my experiences and all my success since the corporate world has been through networking. All the job leads, all the business contacts have all come through professional networking. So it's something that you never, once you start it, you have to keep it going and you never stop is really the message here. But in all my years, I've met somebody, his name is Clinton McLemore. He was the top USC professor of psychology for many, many years. He was a 20, 30-year consultant at the Rand Corporation. And he told me, he said, the number one quality, because I asked him, said, what, tell me a little bit about your experience with the Rand Corporation and some of the things you learned about the executives in 30, 40 years of your consulting practice and working at USC. And he helped me get my doctorate as well. He told me the one quality that executives and managers need is to be able to build long-term relationships. Never forget that. He said long-term relationships, and he found that from his own experience. So that's the message here is let's start talking about how do we build long-term relationships that you can count on over the years, and what does that really mean?
That's so interesting. And you touched on this, but you said it's something that you've got to keep working. And that's so important because any long-term relationship, it doesn't just happen. You've got to work at it. So let's sort of talk through the reality today is that professional networks can be online and they can be offline. What are the key differences between building relationships in each space?
Okay. Well, there's a couple of things that I've found. Online, I use it for basically just for support, backup, follow-up, introductions, maybe articles and some research. People fall into the trap sometimes of spending too much time online. And I think you've all heard about the Pareto rule, the 80-20 rule. So I use that to apply to this theory here. And that is that when you're offline, you're meeting people, you're engaging in a human environment, and you're talking to people. But when you're online, you're by yourself. So keep that rule in mind, the 80-20 rule. I think that you need to spend about 80% of your time offline, meeting people, working with people, shaking hands, eyeball to eyeball, and building those relationships. And that's what it's really all about. That's the difference between the two. One is a backup and support, and the other is meeting people.
That I love the Pareto. I have never heard that comparison. That's something that we can all take away with us, the 80-20. So here's something that I hear, and I've actually experienced this too, right? Many people find networking intimidating. What are some of the initial steps someone can take to feel more comfortable in building their network?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The fear sets in right away. And I've talked to so many business executives, no matter what they've done in their past, there's this kind of thing that they get intimidated by going out and doing it for the first time, actually, and they need to prepare. So some of the ways that you can prepare for networking is this, and it takes time to do it before you go out there and start laying down your card. And that is that prepare your elevator pitch. Have a 1-minute elevator pitch on who you are. There's a lot of information on it online and how to do it. We all do it and practice it, but have an introductory statement to make and practice that statement over and over again. So when someone says, "Who are you?" Tell me a little bit about you. You have at least a 1-minute introduction, and that's where the elevator pitch comes in. The second thing I find that people need to do is to have some business cards. Remember, if they left their company or they're starting a new company, have some business cards ready to go. They're inexpensive, but that's a nice way to set up a meeting with somebody. Exchange business cards is still very, very popular. So make sure you have plenty of those available. Another thing you can do that I've set up is flyers. I've created 3 or 4 or 5 flyers about me and what I've done and what I'm looking for and what my business is all about. And I use them at different entities. Depends who I'm meeting. I may change the flyer from time to time, but have 3 or 4 or 5 flyers that'll help you be able to give something to somebody and say, "Here, remember me at the end of the meeting, and here's just a little something about me." And they'll be surprised and shocked that you've taken the time to do that. In addition to those steps, I add Make sure your resume is up to date, no matter if you're going to use it or not. Make sure your biography is up to date, a nice one-page biography about who you are and how you think, and maybe some of your management and leadership skills, and make sure it all aligns to your LinkedIn profile. And the last thing I would say is basically build yourself a small PowerPoint. There's nothing wrong with having 5 or 6 slides about you and what you've done in your career, what you're looking for, what your business is about. Have something ready, because you just never know when somebody may ask you, can you get up and you can present and tell us who you really are? And you only need 5 or 6 or maybe 7 slides to do that as well. So it's all in the preparation. If you have all these things ready to go, then you can practice and get out there. And I used to go to a certification school under the name of Zenger Miller. It's been around for many, many years. It was a certification we HR professionals got. And basically they taught us to practice these things before you go out there. Use a mirror if you have to. Talk in a mirror if you have to practice that way. Shake people's hands. Use your family and friends to do all these things first, and practice what you're going to be doing with people. I used to go out in the garage and set up a flip chart and do all my presentations in the garage. Nobody was around, but it gave me a chance to practice. And then when somebody calls upon you, you're ready to go at any one given time. So those are the tips in getting started to overcome the fear and intimidation of meeting new people.
Those are really great tips. And what occurs to me, first of all, if you think about it, there's a perception that we can have, which is, well, I look at the way that he does it and he seems like such a natural. I think in reality, for people who appear to be natural speakers or naturally comfortable in networking, it's because they practice so much that it seemed natural. And so they got more comfortable. Another thing that I've learned, and when you said it, Bob, it just resonated with me, is building the PowerPoint and the flyers. When I started my consulting firm, I had a bunch of ideas about what I wanted to do, but what really helped me distill it so I had the elevator pitch was to do a PowerPoint about what my company's about, who I serve, how I serve them, and then I could distill that into the quick, here's who I am, here's what I do, answer the why me question. So I think those are all really helpful. Sometimes just going through that process helps you get to the point where it feels natural. So for anyone who feels intimidated and uncomfortable with this, practice helps so much. I love the idea of practicing in front of the mirror. Now, there's another thing too that I think sometimes people run across when they're networking, and that's like the whole idea of, I need to have a billion people that I interact with. But then there's sort of this idea of quality over quantity. How do we identify the right people to connect with for our own business goals?
Okay. Well, I thought about that too when I was starting the consulting. And so what I did was I went ahead and when you're by yourself, I thought of the org chart. I'm the CEO of my destiny, right? I'm out there by myself. Now I'm starting a business, starting a practice, and I need to get this thing started. So I took a blank org chart, go online and get them. I put my name in the CEO position. I'm Bob Adamik, the CEO of my destiny. Now below that, who's reporting to me? Well, all my contacts by groups. Like if I was in networking groups, I'd list that in one group. If it was a church, if it was nonprofit organizations, if it was those volunteer groups, I started listing all the people below me that I really know that I work with on a day-to-day basis. And I started with that concept. So those are the first people that I reached out to as CEO of my destiny. And here's where this really fits. Some of us have heard about the 6 degrees of separation. We use it in the USC teaching all the time. And here's the theory I want you to understand. Each person knows 225 people. Now, where do we get that from? 225 people. Where'd you get that, Bob? Well, the researchers at Harvard have found out that by surveying weddings and funerals, the average person knows at least 225 people. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense by using those markers. Now, you take those 225 people, you meet this one person in the room someday or in a meeting someplace. That person knows 225 people. Now, those 225 people, guess what? They know 225 people as well. So now you've just expanded your network from 1 to 225 times 225 is 50,625 people. Now, Those 50,625 people also know 225 people. You times it out, it's 11,390,625 people. So you can just build that theory that one person knows a lot of people, and that's how you're going to build your business, your practice, and your relationships. Think about that.
As I think about that, what that tells me is that I know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody that I want to do business with.
Yeah.
So the message I'm hearing, Bob, is all I need to do is work my network and I'll be able to connect with everybody I could ever want to do business with, and vice versa. That's amazing. That is amazing. That also is comforting too, because it sort of takes away some of the fear, some of the discomfort, because if I think I'm going to people who know somebody who knows somebody who knows me, it feels a little less intimidating. Fantastic idea.
Yeah.
So one of the principles that I've heard about truly accelerating being an extraordinary networker is this idea of give first before receiving. So share something of value with those that you're engaging. Is this something that you advise, and how can listeners ensure that they're building mutually beneficial relationships?
Good. That's the principle of reciprocity. My favorite word. I've used it for hundreds of times in meetings and throughout ethos for the 13 years. We opened every meeting with the concept of reciprocity, and that is the act of giving first and receiving second. It works. There's just something powerful in the formula of giving first. So I taught the folks at Ethos to give first. Come to the meeting helping somebody, putting your arm around them, giving them a word of comfort, maybe giving them a lead or referral, just being friendly, giving first your advice, your knowledge, and all of that. It really pays off, and it comes back at you 1,000 times. And I've proven that over and over and again. And that's what the theory behind reciprocity is. Going back to taking a look at Rilke and a few of the other poets out there, Zig Ziglar and a lot of the old timers, there's something they said. They said, people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And that was the premise of reciprocity and the premises that we used for Ethos all those years. They'll never forget how you made them feel. Keep that in the back of your mind.
Perfect. What a great way to sort of contextualize giving something. It doesn't have to be big. It can be just that show of compassion, that empathy. That's wonderful. So you kind of touched on this a little bit. I want to go back to this idea that networking isn't a one-time event. It's not a one and done thing. It's really an ongoing process. So what are some of the ways that listeners can nurture their professional relationships over time?
Yeah. Well, again, we talked about never stopping, which is really the message here. Never stop meeting people, never stop going to events and planning those things in your daily lives or your activities. But staying in touch with people doesn't have to be any more than just a kind of a casual relationship. When you meet somebody in networking, you started building a relationship. Maybe you start with the coffee sessions. Maybe you have lunch with them on occasion. Maybe you bring 2 or 3 people together in a triad that try and help each other to kind of find a couple of people that you may call, I used to call them accountability partners, where you kind of build this special bond with people. And then what you do is you get to know them really, really well. And then on occasion, send them an email, send them some support documents, maybe something that would be of interest to them, and start building the relationship that way. And in time, it builds, and it makes you a person that's caring, makes you a person that's informative, and you start building your reputation that way. And that's how you get well known, and you start getting out there. People start hearing about that, and you start displaying those behaviors that are really, really positive. So you can make introductions to people, you can send them contacts and those kinds of things. And even to this very day, here it is, 20 years later, I'm still giving out contacts to people. People still call me. Just last week, I helped somebody in the Marine Corps. So people are calling saying, can you help me? Because they know that you'll help them. They know that you'll give them some advice and you'll be a part of their life. And that's the only thing I really can say is stay with it, but don't overdo it, but keep it going on a small scale. And that just helps to cement that relationship.
So distilling this from what you're saying, follow-up is key. So,
Mhm.
what are your best tips for crafting impactful follow-up messages after you've connected someone, after you've made that sort of initial contact?
Yep. Yep. Well, we're back to that preparation question again. And you have to prepare and you have to be creative. You got to create things. So, what I did when I set up my networking, really got serious with it. I set up a series of emails, about 6 or 7 different emails that were format emails that I created, nice, simple messages, but positive messages for those that I was going to meet, for the people I didn't even know who I was going to meet yet. As an example, I would do introduction emails. I would do referral emails. I had a format set up. All I had to do was just plug in the name, put Dave in there and send it out, put Bob in there and send it out, or whatever. So if you go to an event, you're going to pick up 5 or 6 or 7 cards. You've met somebody. I'd go home that night or the next day and I'd pull up my format email and send it out. And the one that seemed to work the best for so many years is thank you for meeting me. It's what I call it. Thank you for meeting me. So I got their business card. The next day, at the very latest, I sent out a thank you for meeting me email. It says, hey, it was nice meeting you at Starbucks or at this event or whatever. And then I put on there, oh, just as a reminder, I'm also looking to build my business. I mean, you're supporting them and thanking them, but I always put a little reminder paragraph in there that I'm looking to build my businesses as well. And if I can help you, great. If you can help me, that's great. Emails on events, on calendar items, taking pictures, doing LinkedIn profiles. Those are the things that you need to prepare for and do on a consistent basis. And that'll get you out there and help you to build that relationship and keep it and maintain it over a long period of time. Okay.
Building and maintaining. That's it. Build and maintain. So, that kind of leads to this next question, which is we've all heard the saying, work smarter, not harder. What are some effective strategies that you know of for working and networking efficiently?
Yep. Well, we could draw from our friend Socrates, going way back. I talked about know thyself, right? The unexamined life and
Right.
all of that. I think it's a time that we need to step back and take a real close look at ourselves. So you need to do a self-evaluation. My advice and tips is do a self-evaluation and an honest evaluation of who you are, your strengths, your weaknesses, your competencies. It's amazing, Dave, the number of people that I've talked to, senior executives. I ask them, what are your skills? What are your competencies? And the only word that I get is I'm a leader. That doesn't work. That's too generalized. In the management cycles, there's over 10,000 definitions of leaders. I want to know which one are you. So know your strengths, know your weaknesses, identify them, and so you can express them to people in a positive way. So be aware of who you are. The other thing is that I sometimes will work with somebody and I'll have them take a list and take a blank piece of paper. On the left side of the page, I'd say, tell me what you want to do. And on the right side of the page, tell me what you don't want to do. Know where you want to go. And people really have to think about that a little bit, because if you're out there building a business, know where you want to do business, know who you want to do business with, but also know who you don't want to do business and where you don't want to go. So it's knowing your limitations, it's knowing who you are, what you can do and what you can't do, and just being honest with yourself and having that honest evaluation. It's very, very important to do that if you're going to be networking with people and talking to people.
All those things contribute to working efficiently. So, really, really good points.
Mhm.
Let's talk about our personal value proposition, the answer to the why me question. Why you? Why does this matter, Bob?
Well, it's an important question. So after you have done the self evaluations, of course, you really know who you are, and you can express who you are in an honest way with your values and all those kinds of things. Uh, why am I the best fit? Why am I the best HR person to help you with your company and all of that? Well, I've done it differently. I've gone through the assessment processes. I believe that the people need to go through the assessments. You've heard of the Myers-Briggs assessments. You've heard of the DISC profiles. I use AVA, activity vector analysis, for 40 years and have done thousands of evaluations on executives. Um, Emotional intelligence is very, very important to do. Strength finders, PI, there's so many of them out there. A lot of them are available and some even free, where you get to know yourself and your behavior and who you really are as a person. So I think the why me question could be answered once you do these evaluations. You step back and you know who you are. You can express those things to people and then in an honest way and say, here's who I really am. Here's what I believe. And if you do that over and over again, people will really get the picture that you are the best fit for my company. You are a good person. You've done the self-evaluations and you're honest about it. And that has worked for me so many times over the years. So I do the evaluations all the time and believe in them wholeheartedly. And then to back it up, once you know all of that, then I start working on the behavioral interviewing questions. What is somebody going to ask me? And then I want to respond back to them in a positive way. And the only way that I can do that is come up with stories of success. You need to do that. So once you know who you are and you can express it, someone's going to say, tell me something that you've done at this company or with this client. Have success stories ready to go. Short, brief videos going through your mind of some things that you've done, that you've accomplished, that you're very, very proud of. And that shows people who you really are. Very important.
Yeah, love it. So we've covered a lot of terrain. You've brought up so many things that are relevant to being truly successful in networking. What other fundamentals in networking would you like to share with our listeners today?
Okay. The key to this question really is this. At Harvard, they created an exercise like this. You take a flip chart out, you put 9 dots on the page. Very simple. 9 dots, 3 across, 3 down, fill them in. You got 9 dots on the page. And I used to ask people to come up and try and connect the dots in 4 strokes. So people that do that, 99% of the people that do that stay within the 9 dots. They stay within, and they can't do it. You can't connect all 9 dots with 4 strokes of a pen or with a marker. So the key to the question is go outside the dots. The way that you can connect all 9 dots with 4 strokes is you have to go outside the 9 dots, and they connect very, very easily. But I can show you the pattern. If we had it lined up, I can show you the pattern, and it works. So the key to this is go outside the box. That's where the opportunities are. That's where success is. It's always outside the 9 dots and outside the box. So what that means to interpret to our audience is go to places that you're not usually seen or visible in. I don't go to HR places all the time because HR, they already have everything. They're Fortune 500 companies. They don't need somebody like me. I go to places that need me. As an example, to conferences, to focus groups, maybe to universities and colleges. Maybe I'll go to a political event or seminar or an IT company or a conference or a volunteer group or a nonprofit group. I'll go to those places and build new relationships outside the box. And remember, all those people know 225 people each, and you never know who you're going to bump into. So stay outside the box. That's the message.
So those are a lot of things that contribute to success. Are there any common networking mistakes that you see people make, and how can we avoid them?
Yep. Well, the biggest thing is that, as we know from my neuroscience research, that cortisol, rises pretty quickly. Actually, within a third of a second, it rises in your body. So depression and frustration are the 2 things that rise very quickly when you're out there starting a business and or looking for a career change. In addition to it, it sets in very, very quickly. No one calls you back. You're waiting for the phone to ring. It's not ringing. You're getting a little bit frustrated. So there are things that you can do to help yourself. So the common mistakes are just that, waiting for the phone to ring and not getting out there and meeting people and building your career or building your company. So there's a good book out there that I've used many, many times. It's called Excuses Be Gone. It's kind of an interesting book because it tells you to sit down and write up all the problems that you're having, the excuses that you're going to use as why I'm not successful or why no one's calling me back and why the phone's not ringing. You write those down. Then underneath, you come up with a positive statement about that in turn, and you use that list of 8 or 10 statements, and you use them as your affirmative statements before you go out there. I have a list over there that I use all the time, and I'll read them. And it makes me feel more positive. I'm not going to accept excuses and put excuses to block my way.
Okay. So much of the game is won or lost in our own thinking, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah.
Mindset matters. So as we come to a close, Bob, what is the one final piece, and it's only one final piece of advice that you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
Okay. Got a couple of things. One, consider that you may need an executive coach is one thing. You may need somebody to help you along with your business and or your career. But the one final thing that I have written down here that's really, really important, it's been on my mind, is use the resources of the Greater Irvine Chamber of Commerce. I have met great people. I have met great contacts, business and otherwise. I've been able to help a lot of people, and they've helped me along the way. And that's my final piece of advice. Use the great resources that are available to you, and you'll be surprised how your business will grow, how your relationships will grow, and how you'll be successful in everything that you do.
I couldn't agree with you more. This is not a commercial for the Greater Irvine Chamber. However, that said, I agree. There are so many resources available through the chamber to connect with people, to build relationships, to expand your 225 connections. So wonderful advice. And that all sort of fits together with being the CEO of your own destiny. Another wonderful point that you made. So Dr. Bob, thank you so much. Thanks for being with us today, for sharing all of this wisdom on networking.
Good. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, folks, thanks for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for joining us for the Greater Irvine Chamber Business Insights podcast. To stay informed about upcoming podcasts and other important business news, please subscribe to our channel or check the Greater Irvine Chamber website.